Women in the Abolition of Slavery. The Lei Aurea, Golden Law, which decreed the liberation of enslaved individuals in the country, was signed on May 13, 1888, by Princess Isabel. For over 3 centuries, approximately 4.9 million African men and women faced imprisonment, the deprivation of freedom, and torture. Brazilian society still bears the consequences of this crime. One need only observe the social inequality, racism, and constant violence directed towards black women and men. Abolition was not a gift from the emperor's daughter. It was achieved through countless struggles led by black women and men. Activism, the Princess of Congo, sold as a slave, labeled a breeder. Imagine the nightmare, such a demeaning role, for she would be violated, a progenitor of enslaved souls. Activism, from Jared Arias. Jared Arias's poem tells us a bit of the story of the African princess. The Brazilian writer, poet, and cordelist is also the founder of the Women's Writing Club, which is dedicated to encouraging women who write or aspire to write. Jared Arias's poem narrates the story of Activism, who, after her people's defeat in a war, was enslaved. As the writer describes, Activism was sold and taken on a slave ship. After enduring hunger and the fever on the slave ship, she was once again sold as a breeding slave upon reaching Brazil. Activism faced constant physical abuse, rape, and the heart-wrenching experience of having her children taken from her, sold, and enslaved. However, one word describes a special characteristic in Activism: resistance. Upon learning about the Quilombo dos Palmares, Activism, in the last months of her pregnancy, organized an escape and led one of the settlements that bears her name. Living under constant threat, but as a free woman, Activism gave birth to Sabina, who would later become the mother of Zumbi dos Palmares. The date of Activism's death, as well as the cause, remains unknown. There are indications that she may have died in an ambush in the Quilombo, while another version suggests her passing in a different community. Luisa Mahin, the abolitionist food vendor. Luisa Mahin was born in the Gold Coast, Africa, or in Bahia. The exact location remains uncertain. However, records show that in 1812, she purchased her freedom papers and became a sought-after food vendor in Salvador. In addition to her delectable treats, Luisa also carried messages written in Arabic, which she distributed through the boys buying her snacks. This was how Luisa Mahin became involved in the Malay Revolt in 1835 and the Sabinada between 1837 and 1838. Due to her participation in the uprisings, Luisa became a target and had to flee, leaving her 5-year-old son in the care of his father. The father, a white man, sold the boy at the age of 10 to settle gambling debts. However, the boy grew up, gained his freedom, became a lawyer, and left his mark on the history of Brazilian abolition. His name was Luiz Gama, one of Brazil's greatest abolitionists, who contributed to the liberation of 500 enslaved individuals. Despite claims that there are no documents proving Luisa Mahin's existence, Luiz Gama himself mentions her in one of his letters. The letter was addressed to Rio de Janeiro journalist Lúcio de Mendonça and stated, "I am the natural son of a black African woman, free from the Gold Coast, Nago by nation, named Luisa Mahin, a pagan who always refused baptism and Christian doctrine." Luiz Gama, letter titled Painful Events, July 25, 1880. In the same letter, Luiz Gama mentions that Luisa Mahin fled to Rio de Janeiro and might have been arrested and deported to Angola. He attempted to find his mother, but was unsuccessful. To this day, the true fate of Luisa Mahin remains unknown. Maria Firmina dos Reis, the first Brazilian novelist. Maria Firmina dos Reis was a black woman who became a teacher and writer. Like Adelina, Maria Firmina dos Reis is also from São Luís, Maranhão. She was born in 1822 to Leonor Felipa dos Reis and João Pedro Esteves, a wealthy man for whom her mother worked. Her father's name is not recorded on her baptism certificate. Orphaned at the age of 5, Maria Firmina had to live with her maternal aunt, gaining access to a good education, an uncommon opportunity for a Black woman at that time. Ursula is an abolitionist novel featuring enslaved characters, depicting the cruelties they endured and the harsh daily life they faced. Maria Firmina dos Reis firmly opposed slavery, and her works emphasize the perspective of Black individuals, a rarity in novels of that time. She also advocated for free education and founded one of Brazil's earliest coeducational schools. Despite her literary contributions, Maria Firmina dos Reis' work was forgotten for a long time. The elitist society of the time was not interested in reading about the cruelties of slavery. It wasn't until 1962, when a historian rediscovered her work, Ursula, that Maria Firmina dos Reis regained prominence. She passed away at the age of 92. Anastasia, the Brazilian folk saint. In the mid-1740s, the slave ship Madalena arrived in Brazil, carrying 112 enslaved individuals from the Congo. Delminda, one of the imprisoned women, was sold and violated, giving birth to Anastasia, a Black girl with blue eyes. Anastasia's beauty drew attention, attracting the interest of slave owners. However, she displeased them, as she refused to lie with them. The strong-willed girl often resisted the oppressions she faced, and to silence her, they placed an iron mask on Anastasia that she wore throughout her life. The mask, known as the Mask of Flanders, was placed on slaves to prevent them from ingesting soil, as this was one way slaves found to end their lives of suffering. Anastasia's resistance in the face of violence inspired other enslaved individuals to resist as well. Additionally, she was a healer, using her miraculous hands to aid the sick. She even saved the life of the son of a plantation owner who had raped her. Due to the constant rapes and beatings she endured, Anastasia did not live for long. Her remains were buried in the Church of the Rosary, but disappeared after a fire. Belief in the sanctity of Anastasia was already present, but it increased even more after the fire. Today, various entities request the beatification of Anastasia from the Pope. The Consecrated to Slave Anastasia is celebrated on May 12th, seeking healing requests from the Brazilian folk saint, Maria Tomásia Figueira Lima, and the Society of Liberating Women from Ceará. Maria Tomásia Figueira Lima was born in 1826 in a small town in Ceará, Brazil. A white woman from an influential family, Maria Tomásia married the abolitionist Francisco de Paula de Oliveira Lima and moved to Fortaleza. In the capital of Ceará, she became one of the key organizers of the local abolitionist movement. Maria Tomásia was a co-founder of the Society of Liberating Women from Ceará, an entity actively involved in the abolitionist causes of the time. She also served as the first president of the association. At the end of the first meeting of the society, the 22 women, who were also from influential families, managed to secure the signing of 12 manumission letters. Subsequently, they convinced plantation owners to sign an additional 72. The efforts of the Society of Liberating Women from Ceará were crucial in persuading Ceará to decree the liberation of enslaved individuals before the Golden Law, Lei Áurea. While the Golden Law was signed on May 13, 1888, in Ceará, emancipation took place on March 25, 1884. Many other women dedicated themselves to the abolitionist movement, including Nícia Floresta, using her influential voice in favor of abolition. Teresa de Benguela, or Queen Teresa, leader of the Quartiere Quilombo that sheltered over 100 people, including blacks and indigenous individuals. Acotarini, a counselor and prominent matriarch in the Quilombo dos Palmares, among many others. What we know is that their names should always be remembered and their stories preserved.